devotion and no little pride, and thus was less susceptible to the wiles of bad men. But even Mary, for all of her sermonizing against the evils of pleasant society, had expressed interest in a more fulfilling life than that of living on her sister's charity. Should not she have a chance of finding such happiness with a like-minded gentleman as Jane had found with her Bingley, or Lizzy with her Darcy? Jane worried, and when Jane worried, she acted. That evening she composed a letter to Lizzy. Dearest Lizzy, I hope this letter finds you well at Pemberley. Mamma has just left after a long visit, and I confess that I am slightly weary of her nerves. But it was good to have her company, and it was rather like old times. My Bingley left us alone for much of her stay, but he was perfectly amiable to her and her teases. Father was not able to come, and I believe him when he said that he preferred his library at Longbourn to ours, as we are not great readers, though we mean to improve. But I think we will see him in a fortnight or sooner. Mamma said something that gave me cause for concern regarding Mary. For all that we were terribly embarrassed when she pushed us towards eligible men, she seems to take no interest in Mary's prospects. She seems resigned, no, content, that Mary may not ever marry, and thinks more of Kitty's debut in London than of Mary's. I am happy to be chaperone to Kitty in public, and I see a vast improvement in her behaviour already, since she is no longer under Lydia's sway. Poor misguided soul. I think, though, that we should not neglect Mary. She is as unformed in her way as Kitty is, and though her opinions are firm, she holds them with a little understanding of society and the world. I think we do a grave disservice to her if we do not offer her the same guidance that we give to Kitty, and I think it will be just as well received, if not better, by Mary. I await your reply anxiously. Give my love to Darcy and Georgiana. Jane. With this letter, Jane hatched her plot and waited for Lizzy's reply. Lizzy gave a fond smile when she received and read the missive. Always like Jane, to think of others as deserving of all good fortune that fell to her. But if the world were just as it claimed to be, all good fortune would be heaped upon Jane and those of like character, and there would be none for the rest of us, Lizzy said to herself. And that would not do at all. She stood and paced the small sitting room that she had claimed for her own when she became mistress of Pemberley. The great house was hardly a house at all, and its inhabitants, Lizzy, her young sister-in-law Georgiana, and her husband Darcy, rattled about in it as loosely as buttons in an old hat-box. Elizabeth was used to cosier comforts. Longbourn was small and old and respectably shabby. This little room, which received the afternoon sun and looked out over a small bit of wilderness, reminded her of her childhood and her upbringing. When her gaze fell on a miniature of her husband and all that it represented, she knew that Jane was right. Perhaps Mary would never find such happiness, but to withhold any opportunity from her by the simple expedient of assuming that she of all others would never fall in love, that she would never attract a respectable man, was as prejudiced a thought as any that Lizzy had been susceptible to. For we all know how that turned out, she thought. My prejudice almost cost me my love. How much more dangerous, then, to hold such assumptions concerning my sister, and to wield such power by omission as to prevent her from ever discovering whether there is a man for her. Jane is right. We must do all we can for Mary. When she entered her husband's study and gave him a kiss as he bent over his letters, he smiled up at her, his expression lightening so much that it melted her heart. You have the look of mischief about you, Mr. Darcy said. Much as when we first met and exchanged words. Have I need to fear? Not at all, she said. I merely came to warn you that I am my mother's daughter after all. Jane and I are prepared to make a match for Mary. Chapter 2.